Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are unpacking a topic that I think culturally we have miscategorized for, what, about 2 decades now?
At least, yeah.
We tend to file cyberbullying away in this mental drawer that's just labeled high school problems, right alongside prom drama and detention. But looking at the stack of research we have for today, that feels like a dangerous oversimplification.
It really is. We're looking at a phenomenon that has, it's essentially industrialized harassment. It's weaponized algorithms.
And it's created this massive legal gray zone that affects everyone, right? From the 14-year-old gamer all the way up to the 45-year-old doctor.
Absolutely. It is definitely not just a schoolyard issue anymore, if it ever really was.
Right.
When you look at the trajectory from the early 2000s to now, we aren't just seeing an increase in volume. We're seeing a fundamental shift in the nature of the direction itself.
How so?
Well, the ISAFE Foundation data from 2015, which, by internet standards, that's practically ancient history, but it's still our baseline.
Sure.
It showed that over 50% of adolescents had been bullied online. But the stat that always jumps out at me is the parity.
The parity?
Yeah, that nearly the same number had engaged in it.
Wow. Which suggests this isn't a simple case of, predators and prey.
Exactly.
It's more of an ecosystem where the roles are fluid. You can be the victim on Tuesday and the aggressor on Wednesday.
And that ubiquity, that fluidity, makes defining it actually pretty difficult.
Yeah.
I know in the legal world and in sociology, there's a lot of friction between what constitutes, just being mean and what constitutes actual bullying.
That's the first hurdle, isn't it? Because if you're going to legislate it or study it, you have to know what it is.
That's it. And if we use the academic definition, cyberbullying requires 3 very specific components: aggression, repetition, and a power imbalance.
Okay, aggression and repetition I get. But that third one, power imbalance, that seems like it would get really tricky online.
It's the trickiest part. In a physical school hallway, power is usually obvious. It's physical size, it's social status, popularity.
The captain of the football team versus the kid from the AV club.
A classic example. But online, power is anonymity. Power is technical skill. Power is having a bigger folder of screenshots than the other person. The dynamics are completely different.
Right, and we have to distinguish that from just a flame war, which I think a lot of people confuse with bullying.
100%.
If I get into an argument with someone on X, formerly Twitter, and we're just, trading insults, that's conflict. It's toxic maybe, but it's peer-to-peer.
Yes. Both parties have a roughly equal ability to disengage or to fight back.
Bullying, then, implies that the victim has lost the agency to stop it. They're trapped.
That's the core of it. Conflict is a negotiation of power. Bullying is the abuse of it. But, and this is a really critical insight from the researcher Dana Boyd, if you talk to teenagers, they almost never use the word bullying.
Oh, that's interesting. What do they call it?
They call it drama. To them, bullying is a childish term. It's what happens to little kids on the playground. They classify almost everything we're talking about today as drama.
I found Boyd's analysis on this fascinating because drama feels like such a minimizing word, doesn't it?
It does.
It implies entertainment. It implies that everyone involved is kind of a willing participant in a performance for an audience.
And that is precisely the function of the word. By calling it drama, teens reclaim a sense of agency. It's a coping mechanism.
So it's not I'm a victim of abuse, it's I'm just caught up in some drama.
Exactly. It normalizes the violence. It frames what is essentially psychological warfare as just a feature of the social landscape, like bad weather or, a pop quiz.
But that linguistic shift, it doesn't change the clinical outcome, right? The trauma response in the brain is the same, regardless of whether you label it drama or abuse.
The brain doesn't care about the label. The cortisol spike's just the same.
So, if drama is the umbrella term they're using, we need to look at the specific mechanics under that umbrella. Because the toolkit for this has evolved so significantly.
Oh, massively.
We aren't talking about mean emails anymore. We're talking about tactics that can destroy credit scores, physical safety, future employability. The stakes are so much higher.
They really are.
Let's start with the escalation from just monitoring someone's profile to what we'd call cyber stalking.
Okay. Cyber stalking is the bridge where digital harassment crosses into physical danger. It's defined by the presence of a credible threat.
A credible threat of what? Physical harm?
Usually, yes. It's not just looking at someone's Instagram stories. It's using that location data to map their daily movements. It's making false accusations to their employer or their family. And crucially, it often involves what's called proxy harassment.
Proxy harassment.
Encouraging third parties to attack the victim on your behalf. You stir up a mob.
Which leads us directly to doxing. I think most listeners probably know the basic definition, publishing private info, like an address or a phone number online.
Right.
But the intent behind doxing is what I want to drill into. It's rarely about just revealing information for its own sake.
No, it's a call to arms. It's painting a target on someone's back and then handing the coordinates to an anonymous, angry mob.
It relies on the weaponization of the crowd. The doxer doesn't want to show up at your house. They want 100 strangers to show up at your house, or at least to call it nonstop.
And the catalysts for this can be incredibly, incredibly trivial. We have the K-pop war case study in the notes, which really highlights the asymmetry of motivation versus consequence.
This story is wild. You have the Blinks, who are fans of the group Blackpink, and you have fans of the rival group Twice. These are pop music fandoms.
On the surface, yes.
But the infrastructure they have built is almost paramilitary. The level of organization is staggering.
It is. In this specific case, there was a perceived slight. A member of Twice allegedly disrespected a member of Blackpink. Something tiny.
Well, they didn't bow correctly or something?
Something exactly like that. And in retaliation, the fans didn't just tweet angry things. They identified the owner of a popular Twice fan account, doxed them, completely address, phone number, family members.
Oh my God.
And the harassment was so severe and so coordinated that the victim ended up being hospitalized.
From a discussion about pop music to a hospital bed.
That's the leap.
That is that drama nuance again. Outsiders might see music fans arguing, but the mechanism is a highly organized assault.
And it often utilizes another tactic.
Yeah.
Digital identity theft or impersonation. This is another one that is scaled up massively.
Right. In the old days, you might pretend to be someone in an AOL chat room.
Yeah, for an hour. Now, you can clone a person's entire digital identity to systematically destroy their reputation, create a fake social media account that looks exactly like theirs, and start posting hateful content.
The Sony Music Twitter hack is the classic large-scale example of how fragile our verification systems are.
It really is. The account gets compromised, somebody tweets hashtag #RIBritney, and for a solid, 20, 30 minutes, a significant portion of the world believes Britney Spears is dead.
That's reputation destruction at a global scale, but bring that down to the micro level.
A high school student hacking a rival's Instagram account and posting racist slurs or a fake confession to a crime.
And the screenshot lasts forever. Even if you eventually prove you were hacked, that image of you saying that horrible thing circulates indefinitely.
This is the permanence. That's what makes it so lethal. It's never truly gone.
And that permanence is the leverage point for sextortion. This is arguably the most predatory tactic we are seeing. It's just horrific.
It's a distinct criminal enterprise. The goal is to acquire intimate images, either coerced from the victim or stolen, and then use them as blackmail. For money, for more images, for control.
The WF West High School case is the nightmare scenario here. We aren't talking about a messy breakup where one person shares a photo out of anger.
No, not at all.
We are talking about a 16-year-old boy running a digital extortion ring from his bedroom.
The scale was industrial. One student, over 100 victims, many of them his classmates, and he possessed over 900 images and videos.
900?
He wasn't just getting back at an ex. He was systematically collecting leverage on his entire peer group. He used the threat of releasing these images to control them, to get money from them, or sometimes just to inflict pain.
It effectively turns the victim's own privacy into a hostage. And because of the shame associated with it, the victims are terrified to go to the police or to their parents.
It's the perfect crime in that sense. It relies on silence.
Which is why the perpetrator got away with it for as long as he did. He understood that the social cost for the victims of coming forward was higher than the risk of him getting caught until it wasn't.
Until one person was brave enough.
I want to pivot now to a specific historical moment that I think really defined the viral era of bullying. We have to talk about Ghislaine Raza, who is known to the entire internet as the Star Wars kid.
This is effectively patient zero. If you want to understand the modern viral ecosystem, the modern meme culture, you have to understand what happened to Ghislaine Raza in 2003.
Right. And to set the scene, you have to remember what 2003 was like. This is pre-YouTube, pre-iPhone, pre-social media algorithms.
There was no For You page pushing content.
Exactly. The viral mechanism wasn't the algorithm. It was peer-to-peer. It was file-sharing services like Kazaa and LimeWire. It was email chains.
For a video to hit 900 million views in 2003, which is the conservative estimate. It required active human effort. People had to download a clunky 20-megabyte WMV file.
Oh, I remember those.
They had to save it to their hard drive. They had to attach it to an email and send it to their friends. It was a manual cascade of humiliation.
And the content itself was so innocent. He's a ninth grader in Quebec. He's a little overweight. And he's in a studio filming himself practicing lightsaber moves with a golf ball retriever.
Because he's a fan of the Phantom Menace. That's it. It's just a kid being a kid.
And he didn't upload it. He left the tape in a basement at his school. This is the part of the story that always gets me.
That is the violation of consent that often gets overlooked in the telling. Classmates found the tape, they digitized it, and they unleashed it on the internet without his knowledge or permission.
He didn't seek fame. He was drafted into it. And the fallout was catastrophic. We aren't just talking about people online laughing at a funny video.
No, this was total life disruption. He was doxxed before we really had a popular word for it. People found his family's phone number. They were calling his house, telling him to commit suicide.
Over a video of him playing with a golf club.
And the harassment bridged the online-offline gap almost immediately. Students at his own school were jumping onto tabletops in the cafeteria to mock his moves right in front of him.
He became a global punchline. He was parodied on South Park, on Arrested Development, on pretty much every late-night show. Imagine being 15 years old and having global pop culture turn against you for something you did in private.
He had to change schools. Eventually, he had to be homeschooled. He was diagnosed with severe depression. It completely derailed his adolescence.
And the legal recourse at the time was so messy because the laws just didn't exist yet, did they?
They didn't. His family ended up suing the families of the classmates who uploaded the video for around $250,000. They settled out of court. But it highlighted this massive gap in the legal system regarding the right to privacy for private figures who become public spectacles against their will.
What's amazing is that Raza is an adult now, and he's done an incredible job reclaiming his own narrative.
He has. He went to law school, and he now works on issues related to digital privacy and public humiliation, trying to help others.
He's trying to turn it around. But he lost his entire adolescence to a meme. It's just a stark reminder that the internet has a very, very long memory, and it doesn't really do forgiveness.
It doesn't. Your worst moment can become your permanent identity.
That brings us to the where. We've talked about what they do, but the platforms themselves shape the behavior. You mentioned earlier that anonymity is power. Nowhere is that more true than in the world of online gaming.
Gaming is a unique vector for this, partly because of the immersion.
Yeah.
You are locked in a shared virtual space with others for hours at a time. It's intense.
And the numbers back that up. Pew Research notes that 16% of harassment victims say their most recent serious incident happened inside a game.
And the technical sophistication of harassment in gaming is on another level. I mean, look at the phenomenon of hate raids on Twitch.
This is where it gets really technical. A hate raid isn't just a bunch of people deciding to be mean in a chat.
No, it's automation. It's industrialized hate. Attackers use scripts to deploy hundreds or even thousands of chatbots, fake accounts, that all flood a streamer's chat at the exact same moment.
With what? Just spam?
With racist slurs, death threats, doxing information. The chat moves so fast that human moderators can't possibly keep up. You can't delete it. It forces the streamer to shut down their broadcast.
So it's a denial of service attack, but for a person's speech, using slurs as the weapon.
It effectively censors them through noise.
And then there's swatting, which we touched on before, but I want to get into the mechanics of why this is so hard to stop. You'd think the police would know if a 911 call is fake.
The problem is VoIP, voice over IP technology.
Yeah.
Swatters use internet-based calling services that can mask their real location. They can spoof the number so it looks to the 911 operator like the call is coming from inside the victim's house.
So the operator sees a local number, hears a credible threat of a hostage situation or a bomb. They have to take it seriously.
They have no choice. They have to assume it's real and send a full tactical response.
And the consequences are lethal. The 2017 Wichita case. The death of Andrew Finch.
That case is the most tragic example of how virtual actions can have devastating kinetic results in the real world.
And what was it over?
A dispute over a $1.50 bet in a game of Call of Duty.
$1.50.
$1.50. One player gets angry, tweets a fake address to a third party, daring them to do something. The other player takes the bait, calls in a fake hostage situation at that address.
But it wasn't the other player's address.
No. It was the address of Andrew Finch, a completely innocent man who didn't even play the game. He had nothing to do with it. The police surrounded his house, he walked out onto his porch, confused, and a police sniper shot and killed him.
It's manslaughter by proxy. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And yet you have figures inside the gaming community who will defend the toxicity.
Yes, which is maybe the most disturbing part.
We have this quote from Eris Bactanians, a well-known fighting game coach, that really encapsulates this gatekeeper mentality.
It was a very revealing moment. He argued on a live stream that sexual harassment was part of the culture of the fighting game community. His words.
Part of the culture.
He said that removing it or policing it would destroy the community's identity. It's an explicit defense of abuse as a form of cultural heritage.
The argument is basically, we are tough, we are mean, we are toxic, and if you can't handle it, get out.
It's the locker room talk defense, but digitized and scaled up. It's about gatekeeping, about keeping certain people, often women, out of the space.
And we see a different, but maybe related version of that hostility on dating apps.
Dating apps are designed for vulnerability, which is what makes the abuse on them hit so much harder. You're putting yourself out there trying to make a connection.
And the stats are pretty grim. 60% of female users aged 18 to 34 report receiving unsolicited sexual messages or images.
And it's not just women. 36% of all users, men and women, report experiencing some form of online abuse on these apps.
It creates a kind of a tax on finding a partner. If you want to use these tools to date in the modern world, you have to be willing to endure a certain level of harassment.
It's an exclusion tax. It pushes people away, it increases anxiety, and it makes people less willing to be vulnerable in a space that requires vulnerability to work.
It's a fundamental design flaw, almost. Speaking of design, I want to talk about Google bombs. This is a tactic that feels like dark magic to the average user, but it's actually just manipulating the basic plumbing of the search engine.
It's search engine optimization SEO, but weaponized. It's a really clever and evil manipulation of how Google's algorithm works.
So how does it work?
Well, Google's algorithm relies heavily on something called anchor text. That's the clickable words people use when they link to a website. If thousands of websites link to your personal blog using the words brilliant scientist, Google's algorithm starts to assume that you are, in fact, a brilliant scientist.
It sees the consensus.
Exactly. So what bullies do is they reverse it. They create link farms, networks of fake websites or blogs, and they all point to the victim's social media profile or their business page, but they use negative anchor text, words like criminal or liar or something much worse.
So it's not about truth, it's about volume and consensus.
It has nothing to do with truth. It's an information cascade. They game the PageRank system so that the first thing a future employer or a new date or anyone sees when they Google your name is this horrible lie presented as the #1 search result.
It's like digitally rewriting someone's resume against their will. So we know the how, but let's get into the who. Because the profile of the bully isn't what those 1980s teen movies taught us, is it?
No, the Nelson from The Simpsons archetype, the big, physically imposing but not very bright bully. That just doesn't apply here.
So what does the research say?
Some of the research is really counterintuitive.
Yeah.
It indicates that cyber victims are often the physically stronger or socially dominant students in the offline world.
Wait, that flips the entire script. So the captain of the football team is more likely to be the target.
In some contexts, yes, because online bullying is the great equalizer. It's a form of asymmetric warfare.
Meaning what?
Meaning, if I can't beat you in a fistfight, or I can't compete with your popularity in the hallway, I can go online and absolutely destroy you. Because online, physical strength is irrelevant. Anonymity is my strength.
So it's the weapon of choice for the physically weaker to attack the physically stronger.
Or the socially less powerful to attack the socially powerful. It's a way to punch up, in a sense, but using these really destructive tactics.
And personality-wise, are we seeing signs of, like, sociopathy, or is it just boredom and cruelty?
The profiles often show high levels of anger, low empathy, and high impulsivity. But the gender dynamics here are also really nuanced. There's this common trope that bullying is a boy thing.
But the data says otherwise.
The data says that while boys might initiate physical bullying earlier, by middle school, girls are actually more likely to engage in cyberbullying than boys are.
More likely. Why?
It seems to align with evolutionary psychology theories regarding indirect aggression.
Right, the idea that stereotypically boys are socialized for direct physical confrontation, shoving, hitting, while girls are often socialized for reputational management.
Precisely. The weapons are gossip, social exclusion, manipulation. The internet is the ultimate engine for indirect aggression. It allows you to destroy someone's reputation and social standing without ever having to throw a punch.
Which would explain stats like the 2014 study we have here, where 80% of body-shaming tweets were sent by women.
It's a brutal competitive arena for social standing, and for women, historically, that competition has often been indirect and focused on reputation and appearance. The internet just amplifies that.
There is one subcategory of the WHO that is just. It's completely baffling, and that's digital self-harm.
This is often the hardest one for parents and educators to understand or even believe is real.
So explain what it is.
This is when a teen creates an anonymous account online to cyberbully themselves. They post hateful comments on their own photos. They send themselves anonymous threats.
Why? Is it a cry for help? Is it some kind of strategy?
It can be several things. It's often a very maladaptive coping mechanism. Sometimes it's validation seeking. They post hate on their own page, hoping their real friends will jump into the comments and say, "No, you're beautiful, ignore them."
So it's a way to test their support network.
In a very risky way, yes. Other times, it's a direct manifestation of depression or self-loathing. They're essentially externalizing their own negative internal monologue. But from the outside, it creates this statistical noise that makes it very hard to track real bullying incidents.
Let's talk about the impact of all of this. We touched on the young minds theory in our prep notes. I think this is crucial for understanding why teens don't just turn off the phone.
I think it's the most important concept. The young minds theory is rooted in neurobiology. The prefrontal cortex, that's the part of the brain responsible for impulse control, for risk assessment, for emotional regulation. It isn't fully developed until a person is in their mid-20s.
So when an adult like us reads a mean comment online, we have the biological hardware to process it and say, okay, this is a troll in their mother's basement. This doesn't matter. I'm moving on.
Right. We have a filter. We can compartmentalize. We can separate our sense of self from the opinion of an anonymous stranger.
But a 14-year-old often lacks that separation.
Their brain can't do it as effectively. Their online identity and their real-world identity are often completely fused. So when they read a comment that says, "You are worthless and should die," their brain processes that as absolute objective truth, not as one person's nasty opinion.
The abuse bypasses the logic center and hits the emotional core directly.
It's a direct shot to the amygdala. There is no filter.
Which explains the direct and tragic line to the term cyberbullicide.
It's a controversial term, but a necessary one to describe suicide that has been influenced by online aggression.
We see these heartbreaking cases like Megan Meyer, Ryan Halligan, or Rebecca Ann Sedgwick, young people who were essentially hounded to death online.
Rebecca's case was particularly awful. She was terrorized on apps like Ask.fm and Kick, platforms that allowed for total anonymity. The harassment was relentless and inescapable.
And that inescapability is the key difference from, say, bullying in 1990. Back then, home was a safe zone. You could close your front door and leave the bully at school.
Not anymore. The bully's in your pocket. It's on your phone. You wake up to new messages from them. You go to sleep reading their threats.
But the body never gets a break.
Never. The cortisol levels, the primary stress hormone, they never drop. Your body is in a permanent state of fight or flight, which is why we see such severe psychosomatic symptoms. Chronic stomach aches, bedwetting in older kids, severe acne flare-ups, sleep disorders. The body is screaming for help.
And this isn't just about kids, though. We are seeing a significant chilling effect on professionals who are targeted. Doctors, scientists, journalists.
Absolutely. Think about it. If you're a public health expert and you post factual information about vaccines and you get swarmed by thousands of bots and death threats from anti-vaccine activists,
you might just decide it's not worth it.
You stop posting. We, the public, lose your expertise. It's a form of soft censorship via coordinated harassment. The public square becomes dumber and more dangerous because the smart, qualified people are too scared to enter it.
So, with stakes this high, why is the law so bad at fixing this? If I walked up to someone on the street and screamed threats in their face, I'd be arrested. Why is the internet so often a legal dead zone?
In the U.S., it comes down to the constant, powerful friction between ensuring safety and protecting the First Amendment. The U.S. legal system is extremely protective of speech, even speech that is vile and hateful.
Let's look at the People v. Marquand M. case in Albany County, New York. This felt like a pivotal moment that went the wrong way for victims.
It was a textbook example of a legal doctrine called void for vagueness. Albany County passed a law trying to criminalize cyberbullying, but they defined it as any communication intended to annoy, harass, or alarm another person.
And the problem is that little word, annoy.
Legally, annoy is incredibly subjective and broad. If I post a political opinion that you passionately disagree with, I am, by definition, annoying you.
So under that law, I could be arrested for a political tweet.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
And that's why the New York Court of Appeals struck the law down. It cast a net so wide that it inevitably caught constitutionally protected speech. You generally cannot legislate against being mean without also infringing on the right to be opinionated.
Unless it crosses the line into what the courts call true threats.
Right, and that line is very specific. I am going to kill you tomorrow at 4 p.m. at your house is a crime. I hope you die in a fire is, in most cases, legally protected speech. That gap between a threat and a wish is where the bullies live.
Other countries handle this very differently, though. The Philippines has cyber libel laws.
Very strict ones, yes. And China has gone very aggressive recently.
What have they done?
China's 2023 guidelines are interesting because they sidestep the free speech debate. They specifically target cyber violence and doxing, but the enforcement mechanism is the platform itself.
So they punish the companies?
They hold the platforms, like Weibo or TikTok, accountable if they fail to moderate and remove the abusive content. It forces the tech companies to be the police.
Whereas in the U.S., Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act largely shields platforms from liability for what their users post.
Exactly. It's a completely different philosophy.
Yeah.
You see the EU carving out a kind of middle ground, focusing heavily on things like the right to be forgotten.
Which is the ability to force search engines to de-index that Google bomb we talked about earlier.
Yes, to clean up your digital reputation. And they're also very strong on employer accountability. If you're being bullied by a coworker on the company's Slack channel, the company is held liable for not providing a safe work environment.
So if the law is slow and clunky, what actually works? We see tech solutions like that back-off bully app developed by teens in Connecticut to report bullying anonymously. But tech solutions feel like Band-Aids on a gaping wound.
The tech can be a useful tool, but the solution has to be cultural. It comes down to the bystander.
The person who sees it happening.
We know from the research that 95% of teens on social media have witnessed cruel behavior online. 55% say they witness it frequently. But the vast majority do nothing.
It's the classic bystander effect. Someone else will fix it.
That, or it's fear. Fear of becoming the next target if they intervene. But the research is also clear on this. When a bystander does intervene, even just by posting a simple comment like, hey, this isn't cool, the bullying stops within 10 seconds in over half of all cases.
10 seconds? That's incredible.
The bully relies on the silence of the audience. They are performing. When the audience signals disapproval, the performance ends.
It's like you're removing the oxygen from the fire.
And the other piece of this is parents. The Canadian study during the early days of COVID was so counterintuitive. Screen time for kids went through the roof, but bullying rates didn't spike.
Why not?
The researchers speculated it was because parents were suddenly home. They were in the same house. They were looking over their kids' shoulders more often. Active supervision is still the best parental control software we have.
So, to try and wrap this all up, what we really have is a behavior that is ancient and human, but it's being channeled through tools that are inhumanly efficient and permanent.
That's a perfect summary. Cyberbullying is the ancient human impulse to ostracize and establish social hierarchies, but it's been amplified by the speed, the anonymity, and the permanence of the internet.
And as we leave the listeners today, you had a final provocative thought for us to mull over about the economy of bullying.
I think we need to ask ourselves a really hard question. We look at things like hate raids on Twitch or massive Twitter pile-ons, and we call it bullying. We call it harassment. But the algorithms that run these platforms, they have a different word for it. They call it engagement.
Right. High conflict equals high clicks.
We have built a digital economy that financially rewards conflict. The angriest, meanest, most controversial posts get the most views, the most shares, the most ad revenue. So the question is, have we accidentally built a society that actively incentivizes bullying? And if 90% of us just ignore it when we see it, or if we click on the drama or share the outrage, are we just the silent audience in the stands, applauding the gladiator match?
That is a haunting note to end on. Are we funding the Colosseum with our own attention?
Thank you for walking us through the very dark side of the web today.
It's an important, if difficult, journey to take. Thank you.
Take care of your digital selves out there, everyone. And maybe be the bystander that speaks up. We'll see you in the next deep dive.